Hi, my name is Marty Shankman. This is Elvis, and this is a video series entitled Elvis Does Estate Planning. Welcome, my name is Marty Shankman. This is Elvis. This is part of a video series entitled Elvis Does Estate Planning. And this segment's focusing on how to do planning, estate planning, during economic turmoil. We're now at the beginning of 2009. The economy, the stock markets have been in complete disarray. People are panicky, fearful, and struggling to deal with the economic realities they now face. Elvis has been put on a strict diet. We only buy him cheap Costco bones, no more of the fancy T-bone steaks, right, Elvis? So what do you do to estate plan? The difficulty of dealing with economic turmoil is people get fearful, but what happens is instead of planning for what you can control, too many people end up like the proverbial deer in the headlights, and they freeze and they do nothing. Difficult times is not a reason to stop planning. It's just a reason to plan carefully and in a manner that's consistent with what's going on in the current environment. So get out of the deer in headlight scenario, plan for what you can. And as you start to take affirmative steps to plan for areas you can control, you're going to feel a lot better than doing nothing. And there is a lot you can do. And for many people, especially those that remain relatively well-to-do, economic turmoil is often a phenomenal opportunity. And you've heard about that on the news and the radio. Keep your stock investments, be ready for the market rebound, so on and so forth. But we're going to focus on it from an estate planning perspective. We're not going to focus on it from an investment perspective. No, I was kidding. You're going to get all the good bones you want. All right. We'll put LV down. There you go, guy. All right. So let's plan affirmatively for what you can control. First, revisit your dispositive provisions. If you had a will that was leaving a business to one child and the rest of your estate to another child, and that business is now bankrupt, that's not what you need in your will. Go back and revisit your will. You may have made a lot of assumptions about what your net worth was, how your assets should be divided. There have been so many changes in 2008 and 2009 in relative asset values that you really need to revisit your plan. You need to put together a new balance sheet. You need to take a look at how those assets are going to be distributed. You need to take a look at beneficiary designations and make sure that the plan you want still works. And by the way, this is not only for economic turmoil. Everybody once a year should revisit their planning. It doesn't really take a lot for asset values or specific items that you've bequeathed to get out of kilter relative to other assets and tremendously undermine what your real estate planning goals were. So you need to revisit it. Estate planning really is a process. It doesn't mean signing a document. Another very important area for someone to reevaluate in light of the current economic situation is your gift planning. You may have been very wealthy and felt, gee, I'm never going to spend all my money. I want to make gifts every year in order to reduce the size of my taxable estate. In 2009, you can give away $13,000 per year per person, no gift tax implication. That's great. But you know what? If you've lost 40, 50, 60, 80% of your wealth in the stock market decline and your house is worth a quarter or half of what it was, can you still afford that gift program? On the opposite side, you know what? You may still be relatively intact, and even if you've lost some money, you may still have some significant wealth, and one of your children or more of your heirs, whether they're children or cousins, nieces, nephews, friends, whatever, may in fact have suffered some real financial pain, and you may want to help more than you ever have before. So you need to sit down and reevaluate from scratch your gift plan. You may want to give nothing anymore for the foreseeable future till you recoup some of your losses while you're licking your financial wounds. On the other hand, you may need to help. And for a lot of people, they're going to be sandwiched between the need to help someone that's really hurt that they care about and their own financial difficulties. So you need to revisit your gift planning. Critical step to do. You need to revisit your will because of the change in asset values. But most importantly, don't be the deer in headlights. Do something. Act where you can. Let's take a look at our next slide. One of the things that's really important to think about, and for many people that viewed themselves as wealthy, and it really doesn't matter how much wealth you have, lots of people never wanted to budget. They kind of view budget as a four-letter word. You know what? It really isn't. To have some handle on what you're spending and where your money is going is really prudent financial planning. Can't do an estate plan without a financial plan. Can't ask someone to do a gift plan for you and help you decide how much, in light of the recent economic turmoil, you should give away by way of estate or gift planning techniques if we don't know how much money you have. And you can't use any rules of thumb because the rules of thumb don't work. It's what's relevant to you. How expensive is your lifestyle relative to your net worth in light of current circumstances? That's what's critical. So you need to take a look at what your expenditure pattern is in order to really figure out what you can do from a planning perspective. And depending on what you can do, then you can answer some of the other questions like the gift planning or will revisions that we spoke about. Another issue to reevaluate entirely, life insurance. And you have to readdress this from a whole range of perspectives in light of the recent economic turmoil. How about when was the last time your insurance policies were reviewed? Are those insurance companies still stable? How well are they rated? If you have all your insurance, a large amount of coverage with one insurance company, might have paid to get a new policy with a new company just as a safety net, as a means of, if you will, diversifying your insurance coverage because of the problems that many insurance companies have had. Perhaps you had a variable permanent insurance policy and the underlying mutual funds have been so hammered the policy is going to implode. You need to evaluate that and look at that. Otherwise, you may not have any coverage down the road. Do you need more coverage? A lot of people, when they feel the pain of the stock market decline, say, gee, I got to spend less money. That may be true, but you actually may need more insurance. If you had X dollars saved and your insurance was purchased to protect your spouse, your children, your loved ones, however you define that term, based on the assets you have, and now you have half the assets you did a year ago, you may not have enough insurance. Now, that may only mean you need to buy a 5 or 10-year insurance policy, a term policy that could be inexpensive, simply to supplement your wealth in case, God forbid, you die before the market values recover. But that way you've at least protected your loved ones. Insurance might be reevaluated in a very different perspective. You may have had a family mortgage business or real estate business that's now out of business. Well, you may have had insurance to pay the estate tax on a business that no longer exists. Maybe you cancel that coverage and save the annual premiums. Maybe you can sell that coverage into the secondary market, get a nice chunk of change right now that'll help you pay down some of your debt and make other things easier. So you really need to reevaluate what it is you're doing from an insurance perspective. Different topic in light of economic turmoil. What about business planning? What does that have to do with estate planning? Everything. Many closely held businesses have buy-sell agreements. You died, you disabled, you're retired, somebody has to buy out your share. Your partner dies, is disabled or retires, you have to buy out their share. Many businesses had buyout agreements structured based on what's called a stated value certificate. The partners, the owners would sit down once a year and agree on a value for the business. Somebody dies, retires, is disabled during the next year. That's the value you use to determine their buyout. If it works and it's done well, it's a great technique because you can save the tremendous cost and what often becomes litigation over how an appraiser determines the value of the business. But if you set the value of the business 2 years ago, the value today may be a half of what it was 2 years ago. If you or your partner dies, somebody's going to get hurt with that value. You need to sit down and reevaluate all the business buyout provisions and make sure they still work and make sense in light of recent economic circumstances. The next topic, let's say you still have significant wealth, you're worried about an estate tax. Wow, what an ideal time to plan. Asset values have been beaten down very low. Give them away now while they're cheap, less estate or gift tax implication. Let those future values grow outside of your estate, save a fortune in estate tax down the road. One common technique, and we can only briefly mention it here, grantor retained annuity trusts, GRATs. In a GRAT technique, you take assets, put them in this trust, pay a return, an annuity payment back to yourself as the grantor, and at the end of the trust term, your heirs, typically children, would then own the excess growth in the asset. Now, there's a lot on the table right now with Congress reevaluating this. There's a chance that by the time you view this video, there may have been some legislative changes. There's been talk of requiring a 10% minimum gift component to a GRAT, way beyond this discussion. But the key concept is there's some very sophisticated techniques that certainly at the moment that we're speaking now can be used to help minimize your estate tax. While asset values are low, interest rates are at historic lows, making techniques like GRATs, grantor retained annuity trusts, charitable lead annuity trusts, and a whole host of techniques really favorable. Now's the time to plan. So you may feel like the deer in the headlights, oh my, I've just lost half of my wealth, but this may be a golden planning opportunity that you want to seize while the window remains open. So while asset values are low, interest rates are low, if you have enough wealth to be subject to the estate tax, don't let this opportunity pass you by. So to summarize, whether you're very wealthy or of very modest means, estate planning is something you need to address. Economic turmoil, economic difficulties may want you to cut your budget, and you may view estate planning as discretionary and something you can defer, but to the contrary, it's something that now may be the most vital time to do it. Your children may depend on it. Your heirs and loved ones may depend on it. How you allocate gifts or assets under your will may be vital to their financial survival, and frankly, even more than just financial survival, their emotional survival. If you're well-to-do, now may be a golden opportunity you don't want to lose. So please, don't just be the deer in headlights. Plan while you can. Do what's appropriate for you. Thank you for joining us.